very pleased to have Markus Rieder, SVP of Finance Transformation and Digitalization, Global Head of Finance Transformation and Digitalization at Swissport on stage. And Markus will talk about beyond the bottom line, Swissport's journey to world-class procurement with Zycus. Welcome, Markus.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, also from my side. So I'm pleased to present today our journey around our Source-to-Pay transformation at Swissport. So usually, to explain a bit Swissport, right? We as Swissport, we are a global aviation service provider. So we are providing services at airports for airlines, for passenger airlines, and as well as for cargo airlines. But before I talk a little bit more about our services and what Swissport is, I want to introduce you to our Swissport culture. So for us, safety is very important. So at every start of each meeting with our frontline workers at the airport, even also with the management team, we start with a safety moment, just to reiterate how important safety is for us in the company. And then we share stories, observations, and lessons learned, and so on, what we can do to have a more safe operations. Because obviously, right, what we don't want is that our people are getting hurt. That on the airfield at the airport, it's quite a dangerous environment. You can imagine there's like big aircrafts going around, there's big equipment, vehicles, so it's quite a heavy operations lifting as well. So we really need to make sure that we do safe operations. Secondly, we don't want to damage aircrafts. Obviously, what you can imagine, damaging an aircraft has also damaging the relationship with our customers, because flights are grounded, passengers are angry, and so on. So it's really for us also important to making sure that we do safe operations. And obviously, it's also very costly for us, what you can imagine. So this was a safety moment. Now I can go and explain a little bit more around Swissport. So we are really truly a global organization. We are operating in more than 40 countries, in more than 250 airports with 60,000 employees. So we are truly global and truly decentralized organization. We have around 3 billion of revenues. The core of the business is ground handling. So for passenger airlines, we do passenger services, all check-in, baggage handling, but also on the airfield, we prepare the aircraft in a way to do fueling and electricity, and so everything what the aircraft needs as well. Cargo is for us the second biggest business line. We operate also cargo warehouses, where we load the plane, unload the plane, and prepare everything for further transportation. Smaller business lines, what we're doing is lounge hospitality. So our brand is Aspire Lounges. You might have seen that in the one or the other airport. So this is also the lounges we operate ourselves. We do as well executive aviation, so really for private jets and so on. So the handling for those we do as well at specific airports. And fueling, that's business more or less in the US, where we operate as well and doing fueling of the airlines. So you see here a little bit more of the facts. So we more have than 200 million of passengers, what we serve globally, which would make us actually one of the biggest airlines of the world if we would be an airline, because of the number of passengers what we are serving. Give you a little bit background about Swissport, right? The organization was beforehand emerged from a bankruptcy, to be honest, right? It was back then Swiss Air went bankrupt and then was split up, and Swissport then emerged out of that. And historically, it was always owned by private equity firms. So what the private equity firms are doing, they want to grow the business, they want to buy by growing the business, will then have a multiple on it and then sell it, right? So what happened is that there was a lot of M&A activities happening driven by the private equity funds, but there was no real focus around integrating those companies. So what then happened, the organization was ending up with being completely decentralized. There was no standardization in terms of processes, in terms of systems. So every country is doing it their own way. We had obviously, because it's also of the industry, is that procurement was really not taking it up as a priority. So was a very low investments were going into the procurement organization itself. So generally, the procurement teams in the countries didn't have any system to work with. So it's similar as we heard yesterday, there was a big pile of contracts to be signed with. We had SharePoints to store them. We had Excel sheets to evaluate suppliers, so no system support, everything manual. Last point, also from a finance perspective, it's a finance transformation, so looking also at the finance systems. So also very diverse landscape of finance ERPs and accounts payable tools. So also there, every country was doing it their own way. That obviously brought a lot of challenges for the organization. I will not name all of them, but a couple of, obviously, if you don't have a system to do procurement, you really do basic kind of sourcing events, contracts, and that was really very difficult for the organization to get an overview, at least at how many contracts do we have? How many suppliers do we have, right? So that's a simple questions, which is very difficult for the procurement team to answer. Other point was that obviously without the system and giving also the maturity where we are in our industry is creating purchase orders. That was a word which wasn't really elaborated in the organization or fully understood, right? Because the most things what we have is we buy services. We are a service company and we also buy services. And for that is, we just call the supplier, we send them an email, and then we receive the service, and then we receive the invoice. So that was a very normal process for everyone in the organization. This is the way how we do it, because all our competitors are also doing it the same way. So obviously, no PO, no pay, we're very far from that concept. And I mentioned already before, right, being that decentralized organization, very different processes, systems, with the lack of the oversight. I mentioned we didn't know how many suppliers we have, how many contracts. So all this lack of data oversight and especially data governance to give rules to the organization, how we're gonna manage data, we were very far from that. Then, so how we started the transformation. We were about to start the transformation, but then what happened? COVID. And you can imagine how COVID was, what that impact meant for the company. We always make the comparison that we were a patient going into the emergency room with blood running out, because it was just, we were losing cash at every minute, right? Because business was completely down. And yeah, we were really, it was a very difficult time for the whole industry, obviously, but also for us. So then after COVID, we got over COVID, we were surviving COVID, obviously with a lot of government support. And then we said, okay, we're gonna need to revamp our transformation. So we reassessed all the transformation initiatives, what we want to do as a company, and we decided that source to pay is really something we need to take as priority as an organization to change the way we operate. So we launched an RFP in order to select a platform provider who can help us to go on that journey and reestablish and implement new processes together with systems. So we did that in 2022. We invited the typical providers, right, for the RFP, and then we went into a proof of concept with the Zycus team. And we did that proof of concept with a selected user group. So we put them together. We collected use cases, how for procurement, but also for the accounts payable side. And then we're running through that use cases in the proof of concept, and then we emerged of Zycus being the preferred solution for us going forward. Because it was really the highest fit for our requirements, and we had a lot of system already at the time, right? So that was also the guidance, right? We don't want to, have now 3-4 tools for different areas. We really want to have one platform provider with whom we can partner with across all the different streams. How we then moved on in terms of implementation, we decided to split the implementation in 2 phases. First is the source to contract, so every process related to that, and then following up with Procure-to-Pay rollouts. So source to contract, we have for sourcing and contract management, we have rolled it globally, rolled it out to 20 plus countries. In P2P, we are now in the middle of a staggered country rollout. So this year we have kind of big plans around rolling that out. And by the end of the year, we assume that 40% of the spend will run through the P2P Zycus tool. This an overview about the kind of the modules, what we are working with from Zycus. So we have iSupplier, iContract, what I mentioned before, to really do the sourcing events and contract management. So in that terms, we rolled it out to the 20 countries and making sure that we have an overview about the contracts, what we're having clear approval cycles around the contracts, and doing also the sourcing events for our business. Then iSupplier. iSupplier is helping us in a way order to obviously orchestrate our supplier master data. It is a central view for us of the master data. We still keep the source of the truth in the ERP, which we decided, that was a constant decision, but to have the iSupplier on top and kind of being also connected to all the modules from Zycus, to making sure that we have that one view of the supplier. We have e-procurement, obviously, and then also the e-invoicing tool together with the Merlin AI. So in our case, as I mentioned before, right, the company itself operates a lot with, we receive invoices from the suppliers, we approve them, we pay them. The second aspect is that giving our decentralized organization, we have a huge tail, obviously, as you can imagine, but also we have suppliers which are, I would say, immature as they're serving us at the airport, right? We have a lot of mom and pop shops, electricians here and there, cleaning companies. So all the services what you need to get at the airport, they are not used to be very, sophisticated suppliers with e-invoicing integration and so on. So the majority of invoices we receive is PDFs. And to give you a number, so on a monthly basis, it's around 20 to 25,000 invoices we receive. So on a yearly basis, more than 300,000 invoices. And this is if the majority is coming in PDF, you need to have a proper technology in order to read out those invoices. So at that point, we partnering up with Zycus to explore the Gen AI kind of capability that we don't need to train how the tool, how to read out that invoices. So really that the Gen AI technology is doing that for us, and we're seeing great results. If we look at what is the future outlook for us going forward, I think what I mentioned already is in our decentralized setup, what we want to aim for is to roll out the Procure-to-Pay process to those countries. And this is a tremendous effort for us, not just because of rolling out the tool and putting the tool live. That's the simple part. I think we heard it many times also yesterday. When you have rolled out or when you have the go live, then the work starts. Because bringing and driving through the adoptions on the purchase orders, that's the critical factor. I call it also, it's for me kind of enable people a mindset change. For me, it's winning the minds and the hearts. And you know also that some people are just will keep to be resistant on following that process. So you need to find the right line between, and we're gonna do that as well, to set in targets, because I think if you don't put in targets also for the business, it's not gonna happen. So what we're gonna start really now, beginning of next year is we put in clear targets around PO adoption, around compliance to the procurement policy where our business leaders are measured with. So that's one part, but on the other part, we know as well that our kind of the organization and the maturity what we have is that we need to do a lot of helping hands for our teams in order to be able to adopt that. What would help as well is, and we come to that point later, so what we're looking as well is to include, to broaden a bit the scope of the transformation, what we are taking in. There's one of the things we look at is fleet management. So fleet management is for us kind of besides labor costs obviously is the biggest spend in our case, but then it's fleet. So everything what we need to operate our services at the airport. So all the equipment, the vehicles you see around, the baggage carts, where a lot of maintenance goes in. There are a lot of spare parts we need to buy because things are getting broken and so on. And our fleet team is working there with a tool called Maximo. It's kind of the standard for that area. And we're going to incorporate that and directly connect it to the P2P. So to have as well then the ordering and the invoicing, so that have fully connected as an end-to-end process, which will bring quite some efficiencies for the fleet team. We also look at ESG. So you can imagine ESG is a huge topic for the whole industry, about how you measure your carbon emissions. It has more and more requirements coming up from the government, but as well from the airports. So for us, we also challenged by the airport to making sure that we are putting the right measures in, that we improve our carbon footprint. So we'll take a lot of effort now in ESG. We're going to incorporate it as well next year in our transformation. Last but not least, supplier pre-qualification and risk management. That is a topic also which was in the past not really seen as a priority in terms of that we select the right suppliers based on criteria, based on risks. So we're going to incorporate that as well in terms of processes, also from a tool support, that we can start doing that in a proper manner. And then overall for us, I think it's really professionalizing then the procurement processes. I think we are in an industry, right? We are not comparing us to that we do procurement in the same manner like a production company or like a pharma company or a financial services company. They're very different requirement. But for us, what we aim for is we want to become the best in our industry. Because that's, I think, is also where we are being benchmarked. So we want to professionalize the processes. In that area, we want to adopt and explore further Gen AI because we see, and we talked already a lot about that, we see that a couple of things which really can leapfrog us in terms of the adoption. So we talked about intake management process. I think that's definitely for us will be a great enabler to release, I would say, the pain from our organization in order to do those processes, start creating, type in POs into the system. If we could release that, right, that would be a big step for us forward. Given that we also have a huge tail spend, right? So the topic would be discussed about autonomous sourcing, specifically for the tail end. It would help also a lot. Obviously, we don't have a big procurement team in every country, every organization. So that would help us. Instead of hiring people, we can actually, the Gen AI, able to do that, which would ease also for us would enable there and would help us to get some of the benefits. Last but not least, what I also see is that giving our very decentralized, dispersed system landscape, and I talked around already master data. So on the supplier data, when we talk about how we're going to rationalize that, so that's also something where we see opportunity to use Gen AI to help us doing the right things around what is the suppliers we should use going forward, and what are the suppliers we really need to review and then say, well, we don't want to make business with certain suppliers because it's just not effective for us. Good. That summarizes a bit the outlook and what we are planning to do at Swissport. So I want to finish as well with kind of the topic of safety. So as we all flying home on the plane, so wish everyone kind of a safe journey. If you are served by Swissport, hopefully everything goes right, and your baggage and all your belongings will reach your destination. Thanks for having me. And if there are any questions, happy to answer.